Okay, this is Paddy Early, and I'm here in the Dominican Priory in Tala, and I'm talking to Father Brian McKevitt. And Father McKevitt is the editor of the Alive Catholic paper, which is a really good Catholic paper, and it's freely available. And so he's produced a new booklet called Show Yourself a Man, a Manifesto for Catholic Men. And I was very impressed when I read it because it's full of common sense, and it kind of analyses the problems that the world is facing, really, and in particular as it relates to men. So, Father McKevitt, you're in the Dominicans, and could maybe just say a bit about your background, where you come from and how you arrived here?
Right. From Dundalk originally.
Okay.
And I joined the order straight after school, after the Leaving Cert.
Yeah.
And basically I've done a whole variety of occupations, teaching and working in parish, working in retreat house,
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
And then just about 20 years ago, I was doing a monthly column for a local free paper.
Okay.
It was just a short, about 500 words.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to the owner of the paper one day, and he made it sound very easy to start a Catholic free paper.
Yeah.
And so, like a fool, I accepted what he said. He said I'd have no problem getting advertising, and there was plenty of news and everything.
Mm.
So even though I had no experience in
Yeah.
the thing, I decided to give it a go.
Yeah.
And I think within a month the first issue was out. It was only a 4-page insert
Wow.
in his paper.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we did that for a couple of months, and
Yeah.
then a standalone for about 8 pages. And then it kind of gradually developed into what it is now, a 16-page tabloid.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been a fantastic journey, I'd say.
Yes, at the time, like, I wasn't even sure that we'd get to the second or the third issue.
Yeah.
That but it has basically gone from month to month since then. There's now sometimes people say, "What's your long-term plan?"
Yeah.
And I tell them my long-term plan is to get the next issue out.
Yeah.
So that's the way it has worked.
Yeah. So, like, obviously you felt this calling to do it, like.
Well, at the time I wanted to go on the missions. I had actually volunteered to go to Australia.
Oh.
And I was due to go to Australia on the missions.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to learn another language, so I taught English. And then when this started, I did it just to show that it could be done, in the hope that somebody else would do it.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, if I go to Australia, it'll take a couple of years to kind of find my feet. And here are all these pagans around me. And so it was kind of a consciousness that there was a huge falling away from people who were attending church.
Yeah.
And the question was, well, if they're not coming into us, how can we get out to them?
Yeah.
And so that was really the driving force. It wasn't so much meant for people who were already kind of practicing and devout Catholics, but it was more kind of targeted at those who were lapsed. At least that was the original idea. Now, as the years have gone by, that has been, both of those things have been there, nourishing those who are already practicing and trying to kind of encourage and invite, challenge those who have lapsed from the faith.
Yeah. And like, it's so people either love it and some people don't like it.
That's right. Yes.
Do you find that? How do you react to that? Or
I mean, not only lay people, but I guess the same is true with the clergy. Some priests love it, others, as I say, don't like it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not all that surprised, really.
Yeah.
In the sense that even Jesus provoked a lot of division,
Yeah.
and I'm not kind of comparing myself to him. But
Yeah.
if his preaching of the gospel
Yeah.
couldn't persuade people,
Yeah.
then I don't think that it's going to be very surprising if not everybody
Yeah.
accepts my
Yeah.
attempt at it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
And over that 20 years, like, things have got way worse, really, like, in
Yes.
terms of the practice of the faith and people's understanding of the faith. Even I think that people have become very. There's almost a term liberal Catholic, like, which I don't think there's any real possibility of being that, like, you know, sure there's not.
Right, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, there really are a contradiction in
They are,
terms.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of tend to think of liberalism now in terms of secularism.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, there is a kind of a good sense of liberalism where you're genuinely searching for the truth and
Yeah.
trying to live in keeping with the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of liberalism,
Yeah.
no problem with.
Yeah.
But I think what we've got now is kind of a nasty kind of secularism.
That's right. Yeah.
And that
Which
would
seeks
be
to
problem.
destroy us, really, like, as Christians.
Yes,
Like.
yeah. Well, I think the best way to understand that secularism is as an alternative religion. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of a thing I've been trying to put across in
Yeah.
the paper. That it's first of all, it's a way of life,
Yeah.
and it's based on a particular understanding of God.
Yeah.
And according to that understanding of God, God either does not exist
Yeah.
or he is irrelevant
Yeah.
to our lives. And
Yeah.
from that then there flows a morality.
Yeah.
And that morality is, since there's no supreme
Yeah.
law, there's no
Yeah.
divine law,
Yeah.
then it's up to ourselves to make our own laws.
Yeah.
And so it becomes the morality
Yeah.
of choice.
And it's narcissistic, like, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically, if there's not a supreme being,
Yeah.
then I am my own supreme being.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm
Yeah.
my own
Yeah.
lawgiver and so on.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you look at Ireland and its history, like, it's shocking, really. I think, like, myself, like, you
Mhm.
know. Now, I mean, I have to say, I haven't been a staunch Catholic all the time, but as my faith, especially, I got involved in pro-life, and as I got involved in that, like, I mean, it really deepened my faith, because you kind of see that it's such an absolute abomination, like, what's going on in our world,
Yes.
like, you know, that to think that we have the right to slaughter unborn babies, like, it just, I mean, our forefathers must be spinning in their graves to
Right,
think
yes.
that we would do such desecration, like, must
Yeah, yes, yeah. It's unbelievable
we? Yeah,
that we could come to the point where we would be discussing
that's right.
what children are worth protecting and what
Absolutely,
children
yeah.
are not worth protecting.
And you see the same side of the coin then is that people are talking about assisted suicide and euthanasia and all. And you see it's all the same thing, because once you kind of let the pass through on one thing, like, it obviously leads to the other, because
Yes.
it is this secular idea. But people need to wake up and realise, like, that they'll be the next ones targeted, like, you know,
Right,
because
yes.
it's not necessarily just the unborn or the old and the infirm.
Yeah, yes.
And even in, I think it's Holland or Belgium now, they have euthanasia up to 5 years of age with parental consent. I mean, it's unbelievable,
Yeah.
like, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it ultimately goes back to the loss of belief in God.
Yeah,
If there is no God,
yeah,
then all we are is just big-brained animals.
that's right, yeah.
And so we
Yeah.
treat each other like animals
Yeah, that's
when,
right,
it,
yeah.
when it comes to it.
Yeah, yeah,
And so if an animal is not wanted,
yeah,
you put it down.
yeah.
And so we just
Yeah.
put down people.
But there's nothing about the dignity of the human being or the
No,
fact that God created that human being, like, and that we must respect that. Yeah.
yes.
So, your booklet then, Show Yourself a Man, like, I as you'll see, I was going through it, I have it all underlined. I thought it was a waste of time, because there wasn't really anything superfluous in it. And it's really, it could probably be summed up like the core element of being a man. Solomon should walk in God's ways and keep his commandments. For David, the key factor in every man's identity, the foundation for greatness, was a true relationship with God. And like that's really, again, coming back to this nuts and bolts, like
Right, yes.
is the acceptance, the transcendent reality, like that there is a God, and that we're accountable to that God.
Yeah, yes. I suppose I've been thinking a bit recently about the role of men, in particular, in society, and the way that role has been devalued in all kinds of different manners, ways. And Bishop Olmsted of Phoenix, he wrote a letter to the men of his diocese, basically calling them to I think it was Stand in the Breach. Something like that was the name of it. And that kind of gave me the idea of this booklet, this Show Yourself a Man. It's just a 12-page booklet, and the idea was to try and put everything I could into those 12 pages, and then to make the booklet freely available to anybody that wants it. And it's very different to Bishop Olmsted's letter, but it's kind of both dealing with the same kind of a thing. You know? And again, like the introduction to it, I mean, I think it's 4 parts in it. And beginning with the introduction there, again, it's putting it in the context of modern secularism. And that within that context, that this secularism is undermining the whole Christian civilization.
And you see, the whole thing really seems to me like designed to divide men and women. And under God's plan, like men and women like are interconnected. Like like a man isn't complete without the woman, and the woman isn't complete without the man.
Well, I think there are 2 kinds of feminism. That one is the feminine equality feminism. And that's the dominant one.
That's right,
You know,
the dominant one in our culture now at the minute,
Yes. And that's really saying women are equal with men. But it kind of comes down more and more to the idea that women are the same as men, or men are the same as women.
That's right.
And they're kind of interchangeable even.
You know. Which is crazy, really, like, you know. And I mean, like even within men, like there's no equality anyway, because
everybody is so different.
Absolutely. And each of us is unique, like, and uniquely created by God. And
so the other kind of feminism then is what I'm calling dignity feminism. And that's really, again, going back to Pope John Paul II, where his letter to women was mulieris dignitatem, the dignity of the woman. And again, that's kind of focusing on women as women, and their dignity, that they are children of God.
That's right.
And that they, like men, are designed, as you say, for belonging to each other. Men and women belong to each other.
Absolutely.
And find fulfillment in each other. And I mean, that also kind of
and society needs that, like it needs kind of strong families, like strong family bonds feeding into strong local churches or local ways of connecting with God, with other families. And like this whole kind of secularization breaks all that down. It breaks down families, and it divides men and women. And it's
the dominant thing in it is individual.
That's right. Which is a disaster, like, you know. I saw on Life News the other day some fella saying he had pushed his girlfriend to have an abortion. He didn't feel ready to be a father, like. But this idea, like, that you can just casually dispose of it because I don't feel like being a father, like, it's just crazy stuff, isn't it? So, in a way, like, it's a kind of a failure of the church too, like, and I think you kind of mentioned that in the book, like that.
I think that the church has not realised, I think so far, just how big a crisis it
is.
is. This whole kind of loss of the sense of manhood.
Yeah.
And so the church has made no attempt really, apart from Bishop Olmsted, or very little attempt to respond to this crisis.
Yeah.
And that the church has a particular interest in the sense that the research shows that if the father is practicing the faith in the home,
that was really interesting.
It's much more likely that the children will continue to practice rather than if it's just the mother that's practicing.
Yeah.
And so if we want to keep young people in the churches, that we shouldn't be targeting directly young people, I think. We should be targeting their homes and especially their fathers.
Absolutely.
That's one of the points I'm trying to make.
Yeah, because you see, this divorce and this cohabiting and just breaking up casually, like as if it's of no account, it's a disaster for society, like, because it completely undermines it. It hollows it out, really, doesn't it?
Yes. And so, as a result, in so many countries, thousands, tens of thousands of children are growing up without a father.
That's
because
right.
it's usually the father that is removed from
That's
the
right,
children, you know. And so they're growing up without a father, and the young lads then have nobody on which to model their own lives.
That's right.
And
you see, the father, if he walks out, like, he has no moral standing, like, to be able to say, well, you need to do this, that, or the other, because he hasn't shown that by his own role.
Exactly. Yes.
By his own modeling.
Responsibility.
Yes.
So.
Individualism.
I suppose the other thing too is, like, with this whole thing of sperm donor or sperm supplier, I think is a better word.
Yeah.
And again, like, one of the things I mentioned in the book was a report in one of the English newspapers about a man who claims to have fathered 800 children, and his aim is to father 1,000 children. I mean, how can you even begin to talk about parental responsibility?
That's right,
and fatherly care for his children in that kind of a culture.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's all destroying the role of men in the thing. They simply become sperm suppliers.
But part of the secularization thing is that all respect goes anyway, doesn't it? Because, like, if you take the 10 Commandments, like, the first commandment is love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And so that's the first point, like, you know, that you turn to God.
Yes.
And then it's all about respect all the way down, really, like, you know, it's respect for yourself, respect for others, and respect for their property and all that, like, you know.
Yes.
So, like, once that respect goes for any authority, like, we become, as human beings, impossible to govern then as well, like, you know. So it undermines democracy and everything, like, all this secularization, like, and it's not in the best interests of society, like, you know. Yeah, you said here, like, the result is a growing fragmentation of society, with each person seeking his own desires regardless of the cost to others. And I think that's the thing, is this inherent selfishness and nihilism, like that. You don't look at the consequences of walking out on your family or not being around to help rear the child that God created through you, like.
Well, you see, basically, if you don't believe in God, then whatever happiness you're going to have will be in this life.
That's right,
So you grab happiness as it comes to you. Now, if you are married, and somebody more attractive or younger or something comes along, and that this is going to give you reckon, more happiness, well, then you grab it.
That's right.
Because
but
there
it's
are
all
no
an illusion,
consequences.
isn't it?
Yes.
Because, I mean, the very idea, like, that you could walk out on your family and think that you're going to be happy, having left a wreckage behind.
But then you see, if you don't care.
Yeah,
I mean, if your focus is on your happiness.
Oh, yeah.
See, what's happening, Paddy, I think, is you're still thinking like a Christian.
So,
But when you stop thinking like a Christian. And I know people who have left their families, who have walked out on their families, and because they think that some new person is going to bring them more fulfillment or more pleasure or whatever. there might be.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe in anything after death,
Yeah.
then you have to get it before you die.
Yeah. But it's such a reductionist way of thinking, like, isn't it?
Yes.
So, like, what you do is you get this gift of your mind, which God gives you, and you use it then to deny God, like, to say, I don't believe in God.
Yes. Well, when you look over history, the past 400-500 years in European history, what the thinkers have gradually done is they've made God smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And then eventually they've made him so small in their own thinking that they decide, well, we don't need this God.
Yeah.
But that's because it's actually a false God
that
they are rejecting.
Yeah.
You know. So
yeah, that's right.
Kind of, what we've got to do then is to proclaim the true and authentic God.
Absolutely, yeah. And it gets harder to do that, like, in a sense, doesn't it?
Well, it's not going to be as hard as it was for St. Paul and for the original apostles.
Yeah, that's right,
I think what we've got to do is just kind of get up off our butts and get out there and do it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely,
and, you know, I was kind of just thinking recently, like, when you stop and you think the Catholic vision, you know, the hope of eternal life, the sense of the dignity of the person, the joy that it brings not only in eternity, but also the joy and the meaning it brings here on earth. Like, when you think about that and when you be convinced about that, like, the question becomes, like, why aren't Catholics rampaging through the country proclaiming the gospel? Why aren't we rampaging through the world?
Absolutely.
Trying to proclaim the gospel, to challenge these falsehoods.
Absolutely. And you see, the thing is, when you look at it, like, when after Jesus died, like, and then Pentecost, like, I mean, the thing spread like wildfire. Because people needed this hope, like, you know, they needed something to bigger than themselves, like, to turn to, like, and they all grasped onto it, like. But I suppose, like, even when Jesus was on earth, he was put to death because he spoke the truth, like, you know.
And the same with Peter and Paul.
Yeah, that's right. They were martyred as well. And John the Baptist, like, and like, the thing about it is, it's getting to that stage now, like, in America and Europe, like, where they're trying to suppress. But it's, you see, in some ways, when you look at our history, like, the oppression is always trying to distract you away from God with the things of this world, isn't it? And if they can separate you, then they can control you. So there's always manipulation and control. That if there's a vacuum created, and nature abhors a vacuum, and it can't.
But I think what we've got to realise as well is that modern secularism, to a large extent, is due to our fault. It's our fault that we have not proclaimed the gospel as it is. We have not proclaimed the joy of the gospel, the hope of the gospel, the centrality of Christ in our lives. We have kind of turned it into some kind of just a moral system, even that we have watered down. And so by giving people this watered down gospel, which is really a false gospel, then it's no surprise when they reject it, and it's no surprise when they turn on us. And so the more we fail to preach the gospel, and the stronger secularism becomes, then the more we can expect that we are going to pay for it.
Absolutely. And you see, it's just spreading confusion everywhere, isn't it?
Yes.
And so you see, you have one of the things here is on God's terms, like, you know, and like, I mean, that's the reality, like, you know, and I think that people have to stand up now and be counted, like lay people as well, because like it's inherent as part of our vocation as lay people to also proclaim the gospel.
Absolutely. Jesus sent out the church. He didn't just send out the bishops and the priests.
That's right.
He sent out the whole church, and I mean, we're still only beginning to grasp that. Very slowly in Ireland, that everybody in the church shares responsibility for the mission of the church. And you see that, and that's like people. You see, the media attack the church as being this kind of
institution, but the actual church, like, is the church on the ground, the parish church in the village or wherever it happens to be. And that's really the church. Like, it's those people coming together to connect into the living presence of Jesus.
Yes.
And living a life then, going out like from that because they've been enriched by the Eucharist, and going out to try and live the gospel, like, you know. Yeah. And we've lost sight of that, all right, like, and we've...
Yeah, I don't think we should be surprised at the media stance, because basically secularism has become the established religion in Ireland. It's the state religion now in Ireland. Yeah. It's still a minority religion, I think, but it's the state religion. And basically our political establishment and the media establishment, they are missionaries for this new religion.
That's right.
Secularism.
And they're trying to push that.
Yes.
And it's up to us then, like, that believe in Jesus and have a relationship with Jesus, to push the opposite.
Yeah, and to show the emptiness and the hopelessness of what they are offering. That ultimately it only brings destruction on the individual and on society. Yeah. But we should be out there kind of pointing this out.
That's right,
Instead we're kind of
defensive.
Timid, we're afraid of ourselves. We're kind of hiding away from it. Yeah, absolutely,
yeah. And even a lot of the priests and bishops are the same, like, they're kind of afraid to kind of speak the truth.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and like, again, like, see, in this secular religion, the role models are kind of empty-headed, kind of actors, models, and it's all about glamour and glitz, and it's all so false, like. And like, instead of the saints and heroes, like, you know, that.
Well, you see, I mean, in a way, we can't blame these people, because what did they get? I mean, they're only kind of trying to survive on the scraps that they have been given.
That's right.
You know, they're looking for happiness too, and I think that it comes from attention and fame or whatever it is. So it kind of, again, it comes back to our failure to preach the gospel. You know? And that so many of them, I think, in their own way, are trying to do their best, but they have got so few resources.
Yeah, I think the thing about it is, like, that it's built into our DNA, like, to know, like, that there's a God, like, I mean, our soul tells us that, like, and it's that we kind of suppress that, like, in a sense. And as a result of that, then we've all sorts of mental health difficulties and depression and suicide. Like, we've huge problem with suicide in young people. And they're turning to things like drug and drink, and now pornography seems to be the big one, like, you know. And all of it is trying to fill that void, like, isn't it?
Absolutely,
which can only be filled by God.
Yes. I mean, well, there you're talking really about happiness. And that there is this, I mean, when St. Thomas begins to talk about morality, the first thing he asks is about happiness. Where can we find happiness? And he examines the various things. Can we find it in wealth? And he says no, because even when you get wealth, then that's for something else. You want to spend it on something, something else that you want. And can you get it in material things? And he says no. Can you get it in pleasure? Can you get it in power? Can you get it in status? And he goes through all these created things, and he shows that none of them will actually meet our longing for real happiness. What real happiness would have to possess for it to fulfill us. And so he eventually comes to the idea that only God will fulfill us. And then his morality is based on how do we reach union with God. And so everything then flows from that. But the first thing is, how do we find happiness? And I mean, I mentioned that in the booklet, kind of quoting Chesterton. He says, a strange law runs through the history of human beings. Human beings continually tend to undervalue their environment, to undervalue their happiness, and to undervalue themselves. So we think that we are looking for happiness, but we're actually undervaluing happiness, that it's so important. And again, this is a kind of an invitation to men to reflect more deeply on what is it that would really make you happy, and to realise that ultimately it's only God revealed to us in Jesus.
Yeah. And living your life for the honour and glory of God, really. Like, serving others and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people, even religious and that, get mixed up in and think like that social service and that. But ultimately, it's about divine revelation, isn't it?
Yes.
Like that's the first basis. Like that, the first need, like, is this spiritual soul food, which is divine revelation, really, isn't it?
Yes. Everything then flows from that. But I should say that it's as simple as kind of, if you're going on a journey, the first thing you need to know is your destination. And once you know the destination, then you know the various steps you have to take, what station you're to go to, what ticket, how much money you need, and so on. You know what time your train is going. Once you know the destination. But if you lose sight of the destination, then you don't know where you're going. And so for us also, that fundamental question is, what is the destination of our lives? And that ultimately we realise is God, union with God. And the thing about this life is that even if you live 100 years, in terms of eternity, like, it's only a blink of an eye. That's it, yes.
And that, like, it's going to go very quickly. And you can waste that whole life, like, you know.
Squander it, yes.
Because we were doing pro-life work there in Waterford recently, and these two young ones came up and they were having to go with us because we were a counter thing for amnesty.
Right.
And this young one came up and I said, and so you support abortion? She said, yeah. And I said, and where does God come into this? She said, oh, I don't believe in God. And I said, do you realise, I said, that your next breath is a gift from God? She said, it is not, it's a spontaneous action. I said, come on now, you don't really believe that, do you? And I said, furthermore, I said, your last breath will be a gift from God. And you've no idea, not one of us has a clue when that last breath will be.
Right.
And why would you waste your time between your next breath and your last breath?
Yes.
Not believing in God.
There was Katy Perry. The singer.
Yeah, I saw you had an article about that in
That's
the latest.
in the Alive, yes. And that was, she tweeted to her followers the title of a song, Is That All There Is? And it's a 1969 song by Peggy Lee. But I mean, I think it's really, that is the song of the modern age. Because Peggy, kind of the singer, goes through, you know, she thinks she was a child, she was caught up in this, her own home on fire, carried out by her father. And then afterwards she thinks, is that all there is to a fire? And then she goes to a circus when she's 12 and she thinks afterwards, is that all there is to a circus? And she falls in love, and then the guy walks out on her, and she thinks, first of all she thinks she's going to die, you know, with a broken heart. And then she says, but I didn't die. And then I thought, is that all there is to love? And so if you don't believe in God, then ultimately that's the question. She talks about kind of coming, she says, you might say, well, why don't I finish it all? She says, that's not my way. She said, because she knows that when she does come to the end of her life and she's drawing her last breath, when she calls it the final disappointment, death, and she says when she comes to that point, and as she's drawing her last breath, she'll be thinking, is that all there is? You know, and she says, well, if that's all there is, let's just break out the booze, let's keep on dancing, have a ball. You know,
and that's the way a lot of people live their lives, isn't it?
And that, well, I mean, it's the only way if you don't believe in God.
That's right,
it's the only way. I mean, I see people kind of who don't believe in God and they're campaigning, they're militant atheists or whatever. And I think how stupid you are. Because if you don't believe in God, why would you care what other people believe? If I didn't believe in God, I'd be off in the Bahamas, I'd be on the beach guzzling beer or whatever it was. I wouldn't be trying to convince other people.
No.
I mean, it's so pathetic.
Yeah, it is, yeah, absolutely,
It's so, and people writing, you've got your man Dawkins writing books.
Yeah.
I mean, get a life before it's gone. That's what I kind of feel.
Well, actually, the two, Christopher and Peter Hitchens, are very interesting because, again, as brothers, like, you know, they're complete opposites, like, you know.
Yes.
And Peter, like, is very, has a great understanding, like, you know, and Christopher was a lost soul and then died in misery, like, and all these atheists die in misery because there's nothing to sustain life and you lose hope, like, you know.
Yes.
And Jesus gives us hope, like, isn't it?
That's it, yes. Yes.
So, like, I strongly recommend this book for everybody because there's so much truth in it, and I urge everybody to get a copy of it.
Okay.
And
I mean, well, I just kind of give a couple of the things.
Absolutely,
Some of the ideas that are explored in it are the individual and society, which comes first. The individual or the society, and the modern world says the individual comes first. But when you think about it, it's actually society. That I can't define myself apart from the society. Yeah. I define myself as somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's father.
That's right.
As the plumber, as the whatever. So it's all in terms of society. If you take away all those things, we can't. So that's kind of emphasizing the importance of society and the common good. Yeah. And then kind of have a look at the idea of freedom, which is the dominant thing today. Yeah. And point out that there are two kinds of freedom. There's the freedom of the person who wants to do anything he wants, the freedom of the child sitting on the piano and just banging away on the notes on the piano. Yeah. But then you've got the freedom of the pianist who can sit down and can play a sonata or whatever. That's right, an entirely different kind of freedom. Yes. And so there's the discussion of freedom. And then it concludes with the essential steps to greatness and to holiness. Yeah. And it just gives a list of those. Excuse me. And the first thing there is at the centre of his life, of a man's life, is his relationship with Jesus, the Son of God made man. Yeah. He is committed to a living man, not an abstract ideal. Yeah. Christianity is following a living man, not just an idea or an ideal. Mm-hmm. And then the importance of Sunday Mass, that's the core of our lives, you know? Yeah. And the need for ongoing conversion, prayer, family prayer, the need to nourish our faith by reading stuff, by listening to good talks and so on. And so these are just some of the ideas. Absolutely. But basically that we're all called, where you were saying earlier, we're all called to share the faith. That's First of all in our homes, and then outside our homes to witness to the faith. That's right,
Yeah, not to be afraid to do it, because even though the culture will try and put you down, it's not to be afraid to go out and be pro-life or whatever, and just because you're a follower of Jesus, like, and you feel this love that he has for you, and that you want to be in that love, like, and tell other people about it. Like, the news is so good and so powerful and so strong that we need to tell other people, like,
That's it, yes.
This is what it's about. So it's been a great pleasure to talk to you, and just as we finish up, I suppose if you just say a prayer, maybe.
Right.
Finish.
If we just say a prayer to Our Lady.
Yeah.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary,
Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Our Lady, seat of wisdom, pray for us.
Thank you very much, Father.
Okay, thank you, Paddy.